Hey guys, I wanted to make an addendum video to the sculpting because I forgot to mention a couple of key things. Before we go into Quadro, I think it's important that you know these. Now, I deleted the original disaster of a face, and I'm just going to create a new sphere here, and I'm going to obviously max out its subdivisions here, maybe even more. Let's go to 200 by 200. So what I'm trying to say here is that there's a lot of options that you can actually work with that I failed to mention. If we go into sculpting now, we go into sculpting now. I'll open it up with the tool settings. If you look at this here, we've got the strength and the size. Now, last time I told you that by holding B and M, you can actually modify these. But if they're too big, so in this case, the size and the strength are massive. So if I zoom out really, really a lot, as you can see, this is the size of my brush, right? This is the size of my brush. And if you don't know that, you can actually make it bigger, obviously. If you don't know that, it will take ages. The closer you are to your object, it will take ages to actually drop. If you take a look at the size, each drag just takes a lot of time to go back to zero. You can do this by pressing the middle mouse button, and you will always start from zero. It's very handy because depending on the depending on your zoom from the object, you can get a lot faster gradients right here. So just start from middle mouse button whenever you need something to zero, and same thing applies to the magnitude. Okay, start from zero. I was at 100, now I'm 0 point whatever something, right? And there's one more thing that we need to acknowledge here is that the fall off types, I don't believe I mentioned those. There's three types of fall off there. There's the surface volume, and only the surface, and obviously only the volume. Difference is that the surface, see, because the fall off is measured from the center of the brush. So if you take a look at the center of my brush right now, the fall off will be measured according to the curve here. So the closer it is to the center is going to get a lot, and then at the end we're going to get very little of a bulge in this case. So if I drag along, you will see that I get a lot more in the center than I get on the side. Now, obviously, you can select different types. Let's say you want the center to be very big. And as you can see, the result is a lot more different from our original drag across the shape here. However, there's one thing that's important to know is that the type is actually important in some cases, you will actually need to change it. So if we go into fall off type here, we go into surface. Now what this is going to do is basically Maya is going to calculate the fall off based on the surface of the object. For example, if I were to do this should work across all the surfaces. This should work across the surface, all right? But it's hard to show it here, but basically if you have something like an armpit or an upper lip, you need to work on both of these separately so that only the surface inside the brush would be affected. Then it would only work on the stuff inside the brush, right? If there's other objects here, let's say there's another object at the end of my brush, it will only affect the surface here on this object. It's not going to affect the other one. If you go and swap it to volume, this will work on both sides, right? If you had another object here, it should grab that as well. So in some cases, you might actually need to use this when you're defining something like crotches, for example, because crotches are, they're both under on each side. Okay, so if you wanted to drill a hole in here, right? Well, okay, listen, I'm not trying to be dirty. What I'm trying to say is that you might need sometimes to work on a brush that's bigger, and you can work on both sides of the same object. Okay. But anyway, just leave it on volume and surface at this time. Just remember that sometimes you might have to alter these depending on what you need to work with, right? So just consider that. One more thing I failed to mention is that there's actually a shortcut for the freeze. So if you just grab the tool here, where to go? Freeze, and let's say we just want to freeze something here. So with the Control-Shift-I, you can invert the selection just like in Photoshop. If you're familiar how Photoshop works, you can keep inverting it. If you want to get rid of it, you can obviously just delete it like this, but you could also do it with Shift and U. So that's going to make your object, remove all the freezing, which is nice. It'll basically remove the need to have your tool settings here opened up every time you want to unfreeze something. Obviously, you can have a different paint method, like you can smooth it in, but obviously you can smooth with the Shift key as well, so it's not a big deal. But the smooth one is more you should, like, it's basically like holding shift, okay? So you shouldn't really do this, but there we go. This is what the smooth thing does, right? This is what it does. So like I don't recommend ever doing that because it's not very precise, okay? Now in general, there's one thing that I can't get it to work here is if we had the shelves, what we could technically do is we could go and exit this sculpting thing and just go into, let's say, I don't know, face mode, and you could perhaps brush select it, some faces. Well, this is huge, so let me just deselect them, and oh crap, I went back into the thing. There we go. There's a brush select tool. Let me just reduce the brush size. So you can select polygons with the brush in our case, and what you could do, or you could just select them obviously by the regular selection like that. And there is a way to make this as a freeze area. I just don't know how exactly it's done from the, without the shelf, because I've only done it on the shelf, but I've never really had to do this. So if for some weird reason you need to freeze just this polygon, like just this, like these 3 polygons here, if I can focus on it would be nice. Let's say you want to focus just on these here. This has to be focused, and this has to be frozen as well. So if you want to freeze just these, there is a way to do it. I'm just not entirely sure, so you're going to have to Google this yourself. But most likely you won't need to, all right? So let's go back to sculpting here. And one thing I failed to mention as well is that you can actually go into your, get most of the tools here from the right mouse button, right? You don't need to, or maybe I have mentioned it, I'm not sure. But some of these need a target, so usually these are for blend shapes, for animations, like facial animations and all that, so you probably won't be using it. But these fill, scrape, imprint, repeat, these are all nice because they have basically different effects, and you can use them here. Bulge, pinch, grab, these are all useful as well, like especially the grab, for example, allows you to grab something and move it. However, you can modify, there's several modifications that are unique to different tools. So in our cases, for example, we could actually constrain to surface, and we can grab only this, and it's not going to move, like it's not going to move from the surface. As you can see, we're just grabbing them, and it stays on the surface. Like I overlapped several polygons, but that's because of the fall off, right? You could also set it to follow a particular path. So in our case, we'd be dragging something upwards. So that'd be something like hairs, maybe, right? So the grab is useful. You can make it work quite easily for whatever it is you need. Obviously, retopologizing this would be a disaster, right? So this is probably better for hair. You can also grab the silhouette, though I'm not entirely sure what that does. I think it just always projects from your camera. Yeah, whatever it does, I'm not sure what it does. All right, okay, so this somehow identical. You got different directions, but usually it's best to use the screen direction because it's very easily manipulatable. Obviously, you can have directly the X, Y, or the average normal right from the center and just pop out from there, right? So there's loads of different tools here, like the wax and the bulge. For example, it just makes things bulge. It's not unlike the the regular sculpt tool, but it actually has a more of a different effect because you'd want to use this to actually bulge something, like maybe if you'd be making a belly, like this would be some guy's belly, for example, like I don't know, a tumor, whatever you want to call it. Basically, all the tools are available on your fingertips. All you got to do is just figure out how to use them. Okay, so that's all when it comes to modeling here in sculpting. Essentially, try to experiment here, make something, try to make your own face, maybe, right? I mean, this is kind of a challenge actually to make your own face, but remember, the more polygons you have, the better it is the final result. So when it comes to sculpting, just max out the polygons. Obviously, don't make it so that your computer barely runs, but make sure to have enough so that you can get the desired result and you don't find yourself struggling to figure out how to get the shape the right way when you don't have enough polygons. And now we're going to be in the next video, we'll be talking about quad draw. Why would you need it, and what exactly, how it works. Okay, so yeah, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.